on the Oregon coast, and I put some stickers up in one town.
So when it comes to large-scale mural cover-ups, make sure that you are always consulting a director for something like that, or you are consulting me. It is something, generally as the activism becomes higher in risk or scale, the more you need to get consultation. Have you been informed about that big hike going on that you can go to? What's the plan there?
Yes, I definitely plan on making it to the hike. I've talked with a lot of other people in my state so far that's on this chat. And I've also made some Florida connections recently because I travel there almost once a month. So I've got that in the works. And I just sent off a thing, so I could be expecting a package soon. I sent it off Monday to get some stickers and some other things, some patches and all that.
Very good. Very good. Very good. All right, John, North Carolina.
All right. So since the last meeting, I went out on my own. Put up some pro mat in the local park. They have like a community bulletin board. So I put some of our pro mat stuff up there, and then I stickered in just some of the areas around the park, like the light poles and whatnot. And then on the weekend, went up to western part of North Carolina with the fellas. We did the interview with Jesse. So that's when we interviewed him. Really great guy. And then we did a couple banner drops. We did some stickering. We actually found a functional payphone where we were at that we made sure to put a Patriot Front sticker on. So shout out to Patrick for that. And we did some stenciling and that was pretty much it. It was a very successful trip where we went. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the specific city, but it is a Antifa stronghold on the East Coast. So we were very happy to be able to pull it off. Safety was like the number one priority. It's a very hostile environment with the Antifa crowd that's up there. So we did really, really well, timed everything great. Marcus did a really good job organizing sort of the itinerary for that night. So it couldn't have been any better. It was so successful. I think we're all dying to go back there again as soon as possible. And I think it's actually scheduled in the coming weeks for us to go hit up that same city so that we can begin countering some of that Antifa propaganda going on up there. So that's what's been going on since the last meeting.
Very good. Very good. All right, Johnny, Idaho.
Right. So sadly, due to lack of ProMat and other obligations, I haven't been able to do any activism. I have been working out to maintain physical form, and I am getting married this upcoming couple weeks. So it's going to be fantastic. Congrats. Thank you. However, the lack of activism has caused me and a lot of my fellow Idahoans to have an itch. So what we're planning on doing is when we get ProMat, not only doing stuff in... Give me one moment. Sorry, work call. We also plan on hitting up Montana while we're at it, because I don't believe we have any Montana members, do we?
No, none currently.
Right, so we're going to try to fix that. So we're going to be doing a big run through Montana coming up.
Very good, very good. All right, I would very much look forward to that. Definitely. Keep me posted, and maybe I'll have some suggestions. All right, Johnny, Michigan. Johnny, Michigan.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello.
Can everybody hear me? Hey.
Yes, we can.
As Alan, Michigan, and Eric, Michigan, and Benjamin, Michigan were saying, we were doing a few sticker run and stenciling stuff this past weekend. I'm trying to get back into it more because I've been kind of getting rusty, getting away from some of the my kind of local stuff we do. I'm always excited to go to the big activist events, but sounds like I have trouble fighting the black pill fever, and so I have but I've been trying to kind of get over that and get back into the local activism. Obviously, looking forward to the particular big event we got planned, and should make a little bit of a splash maybe, and then potentially doing some kind of a camp out with the guys here in Michigan. And I did want to ask, when is the next big national activist event?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But if you have received dates, you should be ready for those dates no matter what it is you will be doing or where it is you will be going.
Right. Well, that's it for me.
All right, very good. All right, Joseph.
Due to certain weather conditions that Leo and I had felt, I have not been able to do any sort of promat, but this coming weekend I'll be on vacation, so where I'm going to be at is a rather touristy area, so I'll be able to do that.
Very good. Looking forward to that, and I hope you enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. Otherwise, I've been actually getting into crypto, and I got a little secret that I found out, so if anyone wants to get into that, just type to me later on, but I'll say that for later.
There we go. All right. Next in line, we have Kyle, Missouri.
How's it going, everybody? About 2 weeks ago, I did the Midwest hike that was organized by Carter, Missouri. We had a pretty good turnout. We had a bunch of Illinois guys, we had some Arkansas guys, we had some Colorado guys. We even had a guy who drove all the way down from Minnesota all the way through. That was pretty impressive. Then he drove all the way back. Like Carter was saying, the weather was much rougher than we anticipated, but ultimately it ended up being kind of fun. We got to push ourselves pretty hard, and I think it was a good character building experience for all of us. And then last weekend, I went and interviewed somebody with Carter. I haven't done any ProMat activism, but looking to do that this weekend. We will be doing some stenciling. Us Missouri guys will be taking care of that. So that's all I got for now.
Very good. Very good. All right. Lawrence, Florida.
Flew out to Seattle to go climb Mount Rainier. It went pretty well, with all things considered. I too was sick, and I did not eat anything for like 4 days. I'm just started feeling better as of today. I actually taste food again. I'm not feel constantly horrible, but I still made it to the top of the mountain. Still made it out. I also just finished an interview with the pool parties in the area. I'm trying to get involved and see if I can maybe get some more people out to activism and see who's around in the area. Because I met some of them at the NJP event, and we talked about the possibility of doing some networking sometime in the future. Anyway, whether this would be fruitful or not is yet to be seen. I'm confident I did well in my interview. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Sure thing. All right, Leo, Louisiana.
Hey, Thomas, I hate to interrupt, but Matthew is what I'm talking about to puke.
Okay, feel better. Yeah, you can go if you got to. All right, Leo, Louisiana. Maybe it was something you said, Lawrence.
Most likely.
All right, Leo, chime in when you can, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. Activism from the last meeting. I'm not sure if I want to stick around or not. I know I was focusing on getting my cardio in for the hike and that we did. And before I get to that, I guess I'd say activism for the future. I'll see what the gasoline kind of situation is here because it's a little scarce now. I just got my power back today, and I think a lot more people are getting their power back in the area that I live in. So it should become more available, and I might be taking trips down to more like southern Louisiana to help out with my family and the local communities. So I might be able to get some sticker runs and stuff in. I'll try and bring it with me as I'm driving, and maybe stop in some towns to place some stickers. But as far as the hike went, I thought my cardio and everything would be good enough, but it could have definitely used some more work, or maybe it's because I'm used to like a -6 feet altitude. I was able to make it, but I would say barely. So probably need some more fitness, or I probably need to work on my cardio a little bit more. But that is probably one of the most difficult hikes we could have done, and it was my first hike, and I made it. So I had been invited to the East Coast of the Sierra hike. I'm not sure that I can go now. I guess it'll depend on what the kind of storm restoration stuff, what's going to happen with that. So I can't fully commit. I know Jesse Arkansas really wanted me to go, but I'll have to get back to him.
Yeah, sure. Just let us know. And if there's anything we can do to make it more accommodating or, help you out at all, because, the storm stuff is crazy, let us know, because we will do that. Just, stay safe and take care of your stuff. The ending hurdle to the last trip wasn't the most convenient, so, nobody would critique your dedication. All right.
I'll also say, since I'm the only one in my area, that was the first time I was able to do some stenciling.
Yeah, no, and that was really fun.
I was saying that it was a good experience, but that was it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you again. If it's not in a few weeks, then a little bit after that, we'll work something out. All right, Marcus Washington.
Since last meeting, I have done 7 sticker runs, 1 banner, and I went on the Mount Rainier hike. It was excellent.
Tell me something excellent about the hike.
Alex Oregon's cooking.
There we go. What was the meal? Give me the details.
We had some cowboy cooking, some sort of steak, egg, sausage, and a tortilla concoction.
Man, I'm hungry already. That sounds wonderful.
It was ground bear meat.
There you go. Not quite steak, almost. Well, very good, very good. I hope it was bearable. All right, Michael, Indiana.
Since the last meeting, I've been on 2 sticker runs, and I'm right up with Girard, Indiana, in Lafayette, and we did the George Floyd mural, which is kind of bittersweet. It got sprayed off about an hour after we did it, or pretty shortly after we did it, but it's making a pretty big. We hit a hornet's nest, basically, but other than that, I'm talking to the Michigan guys about doing something later this month, and I think that's it for now.
Very good. I have seen fire departments respond to actual fires slower than they responded to that, so definitely hit some sort of nerve there. All right, Norman, Alabama. Norman. Let us hear from you, Norman.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Okay, I just stepped out of my office. I've got you guys on a headset, so I've been listening this whole time. Really awesome stuff, man. This is really good check-ins from some people. So I've been getting some really good stuff. My activism runs on construction sites, which I feel like there's a lot of people who are potentially like-minded working in those areas. That's been rewarding so far. Been having really good leadership from Christopher, Alabama in general on activism. Most of my time is spent grinding out hours at multiple jobs, and I'm coming up on some martial arts competitions, primarily grappling. I usually spend several hours a day fighting and training, which I love. But I have not yet been to one of the hikes. I'm super pumped about it. I've got all my dates cleared and reserved for anything coming up in the next 6 months that I've been invited to. I can't wait for that. And let's see. I think that about covers the stuff applicable to instructors.
Awesome to hear, man. Looking forward to seeing you.
Absolutely.
All right, and we have Mr. 342619. 342619. That is a Washington guy by the name of 342. What is your name, 342? Don Washington? Don Washington. Let me fix your name real quick. 342. There we go. Don Washington.
Mumble was giving me a run around.
Go ahead. All right, Don Washington, go ahead.
Since my interview, I've done some around a very diverse neighborhood. I also ordered some stencils and stickers. So those should be hopefully on the way soon. And I need to do a little bit more networking to get together with some of the guys from Washington. Unfortunately, I had to miss. I had a major dental issue come up, teeth snapping. So, yeah, I just need to really work on networking with some of the guys and getting together. I'd really love to do a hike. I've been working out every day, eating 4,000 calories to gain some weight. So, trying to move forward and get stronger.
Very good, very good. Keep it up, and good work on that. All right, Philip, Florida. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I got to use my brand new stickers for another ProMat run last weekend, and it felt great.
Very good, very good. All right, Randolph.
Since our last meeting, I think I've done 2 sticker runs, been on 2 hikes, and done at least 2 interviews along with Carter, Missouri.
Tell us a little bit about your experience on the hike. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the Midwest hike was, as Kyle said, a good character and bond building experience, especially with the monsoon we had. But I'd say Carter's chili at the end made it all worth it. And the Colorado hike, all I'll say about that is, if you're not used to high altitude, definitely maybe try to bring some oxygen with you. We could have used more of that, but otherwise, if you find yourself hungry on top of a mountain, don't try to eat a can of soup. Just stick with a protein bar or something.
Yeah, it's a little bit unwieldy, right? But yeah, no, Randolph did an amazing job on the hike. We're very happy to have him. I was very happy to get to spend a lot of time with him, having not gotten the chance to do so before. So yes, very wonderful. Thanks for making it to both the hikes and doing excellently on both ends. It's truly a shared experience. You know, it's not just going up a mountain. It's a shared experience and a shared accomplishment with everybody, because it's a team effort, because we're not, just out there with our, athleisure wear and, all of our hiking poles, just going up there to take Instagram photos like the girls in booty shorts, right? We're doing it as a group of guys of, varying backgrounds, varying experience levels, and all of our strengths are helping out all of our, respective, blind spots, and it adds a whole new layer of complexity, but also a whole new layer of accomplishment. So very good to have you, Randolph. Looking forward to seeing you again next time, whatever that is. All right, Sean, Kansas.
All right, you caught me right in the middle of this cycle, so I can actually talk. I was on the hike. It went really well. I actually ended up giving the speech because our previous guy who signed up for that didn't make it. I was the one talking, so I don't know how well it went, but everyone else seemed to like it. And other than that, last week I've been doing stickering, obviously, once a week at minimum. And then this past weekend, I got together with Mark, Missouri, and we put together some banners, which we're going to be dropping sometime in the near future.
Very good. Very good. Definitely looking forward to that. All right, Tyler, South Dakota. New guy.
That's right. Since initiation, Johnny and Sam were nice enough to meet me at a location that was definitely not near them. So I was very kind of them to do that. And we went out and ProMat run. And then they were also nice enough to part me with some ProMat. Since then, I did an initial run, which failed miserably because I didn't read the spec picture spec close enough. That's on me. And so I went back to a subsequent run, hit a few extra spots. So that was kind of the silver lining out of that. And then hit a few spots at our local bike trail. And I'm hoping to cover that a little better as time goes on. Otherwise, I've generally been keeping up. I was sick recently, and getting off of that, I want to get back into working out again. And so that's been going well. Otherwise, I want to get really seriously into biking again because of a little known tip, I suppose. Maybe it's a little known to me, but working your legs up to your T. So I can, not that I need any more of that, but I can use all the help I can get, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Really happy to have you working, and looking forward to seeing more stuff in the South Dakota area. With areas that that are more sparsely populated like that, it can be a longer period of time between when we get new applicants and people that that make it through the process. But all that means is that it's just more and more about sticking around and working with guys. Organizations been around a long time, and it's not going anywhere. Right. So it's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of, taking your efforts and distributing them over that time. And then you have a 100% chance of success. So good luck. Looking forward to seeing more from you. Keep at it. Last, but certainly not least, Vincent Washington.
Hey everyone. Since last Thursday, I was on the Mount Rainier hike, which was fantastic. I also have 2 smaller banners in my possession, and I've scouted a couple of locations for those in the greater Seattle area, which only one of which will do because I'm also planning with Charles for some activism up in northern Washington for this weekend. Otherwise, I'm training for the next hike, which I suspect but don't know that it might be higher elevation, so I'm just taking it seriously and getting my cardio in.
Very good. Very good. Looking forward to that, absolutely. All right. Is there anybody we missed that connected late, perhaps?
Me.
All right. So we will now transfer over to an open forum segment where people can voice their comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas after a 1.5 minute intermission while everybody prepares their appropriate comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas. Excuse me, just one moment.
Who was it that mentioned Bitcoin earlier?
It was Joseph MS.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Just wanted to check.
By the way, just a quick question. So, with all the Washington guys who aren't necessarily close to Montana, are any of you actually just wanting to go the extra mile and come with us, or?
Are you asking if any of us would be up for a road trip?
Yeah, if any of y'all are up for a road trip.
Probably be a good question for us, camp crew. George, Marcus?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm already counted in the group of people that's just going to be there, so.
Yeah, I expect George and Marcus to be there. They don't really have an excuse.
Perfect.
Besides, Montana's a really nice state anyway, so it's, it's no big deal just to go there.
I'm looking forward to this. You have no idea how much.
To the Montana
I'm not
thing?
there to help. Oh, yeah.
And we are back.
For a long time.
And we are back. So let's get going and let's knock this meeting out of the park. So any final comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas?
So, question about the food run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just strictly peaches?
However you want to interpret the analogy to make sure that you have those 72-hour window available, and that you are open to plans and corresponding travel information that will be delivered to you at an appropriate time. Yes, just assume whatever. How's that sound?
Yeah, Thomas.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
If I show up on the day of the 4th and realize it's not a food run and you technically use code language, does that mean you have to suspend yourself for an allotted time?
Negative, it doesn't, because there is going to be some amount of peaches delivered. All right. No matter what. All right. Comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas.
I had a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Or a suggestion, rather. We actually had some copies of your pamphlet at the Midwest Hike, which we read from, and they were quite inspiring. I was thinking in particular that bit about integrity instead of optics. And it seems to me that given the current situation, it might be ideal to, as it were, take a tack in a new ProMat direction to more accurately and directly address the issues which are facing the nation.
So the perspective of our slogans and graphics on the promotional materials are meant to be short, recognizable, immediately rememberable, and they're also meant to be consistent. And the point of the pieces of promotional material is to advertise the organization's location and also basic ideas about its beliefs. And that is done with each of the slogans that represent one of our core ideals. And the wonderful things about our promotional material is they are so timeless and consistent. We do not need to change them out whenever things about political nature changes, which makes our message more robust. It makes it more consistent, and an assumption that our message is the way it is because we are afraid of being called nasty names, or because we are worried that someone might say Jew this or Jew that, is incorrect. Our message is built with a very conscious intent to have the content that it does. Is there anything else I could help explain about this?
I think that explains your position quite well.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts you have on the topic?
Well, that I happen to know quite a lot of, since we're working on building out the Kansas region further, I happen to know a lot of people who have a poor perception of Patriot Front on account of that. If you follow.
What do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by that?
People, I know a lot of them, some of them are good friends of mine who think the Patriot Front is just groypers with better graphic design. And I say that advisedly, but I know people who think like that, and people who would otherwise make great members, but don't think of Patriot Front as a good organization.
Can they think of that after, reading the manifesto, listening to the speeches, perusing the website? They do all that and they still think that we're just Trump supporters?
Well, I didn't say Trump supporters, but they think, I suppose they perceive it as being reactionary and moderate, and not a revolutionary, patriotic organization which recognizes who our enemies are and that they ought to be opposed.
Gotcha. So specifically, we actually use the words revolutionary quite frequently in our speeches and such. So is this just because our stuff doesn't talk about like Jews or black people like directly, or like by name? Is that what they're talking about? It's fine if you can say that. I'm not going to be offended.
Well, that's exactly the point, and that does suggest certainly. If it was a different organization, that's the long and short of it, is people who otherwise would approve of Patriot Front don't, because of that exact reason. They perceive it as being optical, if you like.
Here's the thing, right? Our message is about two primary things. One, ourselves and the group we seek to make our target demographic, both in ideal and logistical function, which is the nation. And then it is our moral stances and convictions, which outline that demographic and also what we deem as good and bad, right? And the wonderful thing about our more universal moral fixture is that if I say doing X is bad, it is bad if a Jew does it. and it is bad if a non-Jew does it. So if they want to find out if I think that a Jew is bad for doing X, they just have to find out if I think X is bad. Because we do not morally exempt Jews or blacks or transgender people or cops or whoever from doing something based on their status, because we have a stringent, rigid moral fixture to our message. And in terms of our manifesto and our message, we don't state all of these things verbatim because at once it is not necessary due to our universal moral fixture, but at once it is also important because our message is not chiefly about them. Everyone talks about Black people, and everyone talks about gay people, and everyone talks about these imagined, oppressed, downtrodden, impoverished, however much validity there may be to that in any circumstance. Everybody's talking about everybody who isn't us. And if we turn our gaze and start talking about everybody who isn't us, we are adding to that trend, and we lose sight of the positive aspects which we are chiefly capable of organizing around. It is very difficult for us to tangibly impact the grand efforts of massive countrywide or global institutions. Not saying we do not wish to, and not saying we don't, but that is a scale beyond our current logistical capabilities. However, that is in the negative, the oppositional sense, which is of course morally justified where it is applicable. But in the positive sense, we have a great deal of easily accessible opportunity in organizing around those who are willing, who are able to be improved, to be worked with, and to be mobilized and made active. So that is why a lot of our message, nearly all of it, revolves around us and who we are. Because everyone else is already everyone else, and they know who they are. But we want to show people who we are and what we believe. And we take this stringent moral fixture, and it is a lens through which you can look at the entire world. So I don't need to lay out X is wrong for XYZ people. I can just lay out X is wrong, and you can apply it to YZ people if it is applicable to them. Does that help?
It helps explain your position very well, and it was very carefully worded.
Well, it's what I believe. So
sorry to interrupt. Daniel, Georgia needs verification.
Also, sure, one moment. All right. Daniel is verified. What was that, Lawrence?
I guess on this topic, another good question to bring up is sometimes I know myself in the past I was like this too, but less so now because I think I understand why we do things a bit better. But sometimes I think people it's also related to the Mr. Whoever was Sean Kansas was saying. Maybe I'm wrong, but sometimes people when we say we're revolutionary, they don't see, they're not actively planning Turner Diaries, type of activities, or they are explicitly saying, yes, we're going to be like the Turner Diaries. And so,
we are.
Because of that reason. Well, we're not exactly, but because of that reason, it's like, well, how can it be revolutionary? How can you be a revolutionary organization if
revolution is a principle, not a tactic?
Well, there you go. That answers the question.
I'd like to say something.
Who's this? Randolph? Carter. Sounds like Randolph. Carter. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Sean, if your friends were in Philadelphia, you would have no doubt about what we are.
Yeah, and another big thing is because of the movement dynamic, a lot of these people have been very included or immersed in it for a very long time. And there's sometimes some misplaced priority because people aren't used to an organization like ours. We are certainly unconventional in our function and in our, method of operation. And a lot of people are used to how organizations maybe used to operate in the 90s, where a lot of like the foundational, kind of white nationalist lingo and sort of proto memes, if you want to call it that, were settled. But we are a very new generation of operation, and people sometimes place in the sense of optics, are almost arguing on the other side of optics, but still kind of a part of the same, as part of the same disinterest. Will prioritize the existence of certain phrases or buzzwords over the actual presence of the proper ideals or convictions, where someone might not be explaining something exactly like you are familiar with, so you don't like them, but they actually have the correct beliefs and a proper moral mindset. So we don't use the language that a lot of people use. We have our own revolutionary dialogue, and we have our rules for our message that we stick to, because having rules about our beliefs and their presentation over a pretty long period of time now, and those being consistent, lends us credibility. Because the last thing people want in an organization is something which appears to be unstable or shifting. So obviously that is not the case, but nobody's accusing us of that, at least not in this context. So that should also be known, that because we don't use certain, buzzwords or call out certain specific things, whether that's using certain, phrases or names of groups or individuals or even slurs, right? Doesn't actually mean that we don't have certain moral fixtures. It might mean in some cases, depending on the phrase. But our message is unique, and sometimes people are not used to that. But if they are of an open mind, which of course anybody with these beliefs should be, because that's how you get there, they should really look at what we say and more so what we do. And they should really make an honest judgment about us in our own right, and not necessarily in comparison to anything else or anyone else. So that's what I would say. Any final topics on this before we move on? This was a good discussion.
If I could add to that, because I've had this discussion with other people, and I've seen this criticism PF, and I think that maybe 10% of the time when this criticism is made, it's actually made in good faith, and I think that 10% of the time it's useful to address it, but 90% of the time, my experience, it's an excuse or a cope for not being involved. But when it comes to that 10% of the time where it is a genuine concern, I think that there's two main avenues to responding to it. And the first one, as Thomas alluded to earlier, they need to watch the videos, they need to read the manifesto, and kind of pay attention when watching the videos to the speeches being made, because that will articulate the position beyond just we're America, patriots or whatever, more extensively, as well as the second point is that many people in the movement will make this assumption that if it doesn't look like the NSDAP and clap like the NSDAP, then it's not dissident, right? It's not in our interest, and that's just silly. I think it's a good thing to make the point that fascism displays itself or manifests itself in different ways in different nations, and therefore the American nation's representation of its national interest is going to be different than another nation like Germany's, and that's fine. And that doesn't invalidate either of the ways of doing it. I think that's a good thing to point to make.
Sure. Interesting comments. Was that Alan?
So, yes, that was me.
Cool, Alan. All right. Go ahead, Sean.
So I suppose, I should just, I'll tell my friends, I suppose, that Patriot Front is opposed to Jewish control of the United States. We're just not big on talking about it much.
So that's not even necessarily correct. So obviously I am opposed to control of the United States where it is against our national interest. And yeah, Jews are definitely involved in, institutions and government, and they definitely, a lot of the people doing the things that I'm very much morally against are Jewish. And in some cases that might be a coincidence, and in other cases it's probably not. And I've actually spoken about this before. At a podcast, and you can send them a link. I'm sure someone can dig it up and send it to you.
I got it. I believe it was with the old NRM thing. I've heard it before.
Not that old in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, I mean, anytime I've ever been asked this question, I give the same answer. And we openly state what we are against in regards to the existence of the United States as it stands. And if Jews are involved, if it's not like, you know, we're conservatives where we say, oh, we don't like the government because it's doing X, and someone says, oh, well, Jews are actually involved in the government. We say, oh my God, right? I would never. No, we don't say that, because we place our morality above optics, right? We place our integrity before optics. So we say, yes, I am still against X, Y, and Z because that is what my moral convictions demand. But we are all even less reactionary in that context because our morals don't change based on, you know, what kind of people are committing the actions. And certainly it's a very diverse country. So there's obviously lots of a whole multitude of ethnicities and ideologies which are committing all sorts of morally detestable actions across the continent. So we should be flexible in order to appropriately judge them all morally correctly. So yes, I am not interested in using certain, you know, phrases or messaging tactics that have been prevalent in organizations of the past, because we are describing them as organizations of the past. They are not with us anymore. And I believe they are not with us anymore due to one of many reasons, that their messaging was oppositional, more so than it was positive. Their messaging took a very opportunistic space and turned it into something to be given to those who detest us and those who oppose us, as opposed to perhaps those who seek our interests, those who seek to build and to improve as we do. So that's what I say, and I think we should wrap up the discussion on that note. And if anybody would like to talk to me about this anymore, they should stick around after the meeting, and I'll see if I have time. I have a few other calls lined up, but, you know, I'm usually on Mumble until nobody wants to talk to me anymore. So there we go. Moving on. Comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas. Let's do a few more because that took up, a little bit longer time than they usually do. Go ahead, anybody.
I've actually got an idea. This may already be kind of in practice. I've seen some things talking about like fitness standards and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But something that's simultaneously a lot of fun, builds a lot of brotherhood, and it's just completely applicable to stuff that we're doing. And I think some of it's already kind of being designed, but if we have a system that's basically like specific goals, you know, you're a member, you should be able to run this distance in this time, or complete, you know, just basic fitness stuff, that you can have these tasks out there that are rewarded with. It could be something simple like a patch or a flag or whatever it might be. But simple stuff like that can get people together, especially when it's just young men getting together and they're active, they're doing fitness, they're doing things that require fitness. And especially when we gather at places like hikes and whatnot, where there can be, you know, good-hearted competition between members to push each other further, stay healthy and stay happy about it. That sort of thing is too much fun, very useful, and I'd gladly volunteer to help out any way, shape, or form to organize stuff like that and set standards that we think are applicable to the needs of the group.
Very interesting. I will keep that in mind. Absolutely. It's a great idea. All right. Anything else? Comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas? Let's do one or two more.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along those same lines, like he was just saying, and then you could also have like multiple tiers, like a base level standard or other standards to work up to. And then I was also thinking like almost kind of like a CrossFit Games in a way, like a Patriot Front Games. I don't know, maybe you could like, you know, yeah, you could do MMA competitions, boxing competitions, weightlifting, you know, sprinting, mile run times, you know, some of it you could do online. Obviously fighting you'd have to do in person, but I think that would make for some good content. And
you don't have to do it in person. I've seen so many people fight over the internet, you wouldn't believe. No, absolutely. And these are ideas that you know, no offense to you guys, they're good, but they're not necessarily the most original. We've heard these things, I'm definitely in favor of this stuff. I think this would be great. I want to incorporate a lot more fitness activities into our small group meetups and our large group meetups. These hikes are a big part of that because, you know, you find out a whole lot about your fitness level when you get up to about, 14,000 feet, or when you've been hiking for, over a dozen miles, right? And what we can do, or what we're planning on doing is, using these big events as benchmarks to judge where people at. And we are, not in a bad way, but we're singling people out, who have issues and need more help, and we're going to be including them into a different kind of support group for that. And then there's other plans in place. But the big thing is we are making progress towards this finally, and it is going to be done, and it is going to be done well. And definitely, once we have a fairly solid majority of the membership meeting the standards that will be in place, then we will have additional confidence in people taking their fitness into new heights. They can specify into different things like whether they're martial arts or other specific skills. Once they have that base level built, and we'll have a much larger pool of activists of a much more physically competent level that we can then kind of swing on at all these different competitions or local activities, challenges, rewards, initiatives, etc. So definitely, I like those ideas, but right now it's just about getting everybody up to that strong base level. Because especially with our hikes, something I emphasize, we're only as fast as the slowest guy, right? Because we got to stick together. Same principle for an organization, right? When we're doing our marches, right? We don't leave anybody behind. So it's about our collective fitness level. So that's what we're prioritizing right now, and then we can get into the extra fun stuff. So that's the dessert for after we've had our main course. Anyways, comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, ideas. Let's do this last one. Go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you so much. So what I was going to say was, I say this all the time to my local group that have me, I'm getting to be an old man now, going past into my 30s. And the thing is, I've been in two different activist organizations, which I've watched a lot because of mistakes of the past, but go down. And the thing is that I'm not trying to say it's inevitable that organizations go down by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that, bigger political goals, which we'd like to see achieved, are not possible. I'm not saying anything like that. However, I am saying that the most important thing that we're doing those of you who are new and those of you who have been in for a while, the biggest, most important thing that we're doing here is building brotherhood. And if tomorrow this organization, I'm not saying there's any reason to think this would happen, but if things do happen though, and if this organization got stalled or whatever, and the local network that you create, the people that you meet in this movement, that is the most important thing that we're doing here. And everything else is just gravy. It's just extra stuff on the Sunday. And the thing is that, it would be nice to think, we become PF Nation, over time, or this grows into something much, much bigger than it is now. And I mean, I have every intention of trying to make that a real realization, make it happen. But if you let yourself get, I've met too many people that have told me like, well, I was in it for a while, I put up all kinds of stickers, and and it's like, that's not that shouldn't be your driving mission. It should be the brotherhood. It should be the camaraderie. It should be working toward a bigger goal. But I just wanted to say that. So thank you.
Sure, and let me touch on that. So the objective of the organization is not so stringently defined as maybe conventional parties and such, where they're trying to implement policy and stuff. I am often very critical of the phrase "the movement" and such like that. You hear me say it in funny voices. You see me put it in quotations, because I recognize that the most important aspect of a movement is to be going somewhere, right? It is to be moving. And right now, we are an organization, right? We have rules, we have structure, we have direct verbal initiative. But eventually, obviously the organization should persist by all our means and by all our spirits. But what we can do and what we have every opportunity of doing is establishing around and with the organization as the core, a movement all our own, where we can impact the lives of men and we can impact the lives of men and the common dialogue and perception of culture such that what Patriot Front is, what it believes, its motifs, its imagery, its style of conduct, the things that we exalt, the things that we idealize, grow beyond us to those who may not even have any direct connection to the organization, but nonetheless embody it, and through that larger cultural affiliation,
as a
we
white
can.
male, I've been around a lot of different groups. I've been in a lot of different organizations, and it's just relentlessly positive views that people have about our group now. I know we probably get some criticism too, but just over on my end, it's been guys of all different ages that have had different backgrounds have had a lot of positive things to say about what you guys are doing, about what we're doing, and how things are going.
For sure. So just to finish up my point there, what we do goes beyond ourselves, and our goal is to further and uphold the organization, but also immortalize it in its impacts on culture. Because, historical precedent, the Sons of Liberty do not exist anymore, but their cultural impact lasted for generations. The organization is a cultural tool, and we should use it for as long as it is appropriate. But at the same time, we are also engaging in a battle of scope and culture that is far beyond what the organizational structure itself contains, right? So think about that, definitely. And go read Why Activism again, everybody. All right, so thank you for that. We will wrap up the meeting now because I have some planning calls to get some of those events that y'all and I are going to all planned out, all wonderful, to make sure that everybody's bringing their cans of peaches. So thank you so much, everybody. I will talk to you later. Good luck, good night, and goodbye. And make sure to stick around if you want to chat about anything else, and make sure to always message me any wonderful questions you had. We had a great discussion here. And, so many times people have issues and stuff, and it's just because they could have asked me. And we could have gotten through it, and we could have solved the problem, whether it's logistical, whether it's ideological, whether it's tactical, whether it's personal. I don't know. But the wonderful thing about it is communication, right? We got the wonder of technology. Anybody can message me anytime, and I will get back to it. I have a really crazy sleep schedule, so you do not need to delay because I will get back to you. Anyways, thank you again one more time. Good luck, good night, goodbye, everyone. Have a nice chat.
Indiana boys are the
everyone.
one.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys. Good night, gentlemen.
But yeah, hey, Sean, Kansas is your friend.
You
Like
join
an ideological
General.
thing, like they're obsessed with Jews, and it's not. Oh my God, it's not the Turner Diaries, therefore it can't be effective.
No, not as such. It's more of they don't think Patriot Front, since Patriot Front doesn't seem to acknowledge that the Jews exist at all. And
There's two things I would like if I were you. I would ask them. The first being, well, we're not ask them, but tell them rather. One being that every single person in this organization knows. I haven't met a single person here who doesn't know the JQ. Literally everyone here does. It's not like a thing that like we don't let in like MAGA boomers or like forget the Democrats. Like everyone knows. If you want to tell them that, like that would probably ease their worries a bit. The second thing I would say is probably like it just flat out like looks retarded to do that like head on. Like compare PF's professional presentation to like Goyim Defense League. This is my favorite example. Like Goyim TV. They go around Miami with signs that say Jews suck baby penis with these really ugly like Happy Merchant face masks, and they act like jackasses and stuff. And like they have markers scribbled over a van that says like the Holocaust is fake, and yeah, sure, you can say babes, but like yeah, they say stuff like that, like, but like they look retarded. That's the thing. It's like, yes, it's all true, but they look retarded. Like, and it's like
that seems incredibly disingenuous to me to say that the only way to directly address the Jewish question is in that manner, because it's possible to do it using our tactics and our professional approach.
I'm not done. I was also going to say, like, that like Thomas done this pretty well in that like when you operate like that, you are like you're kind of feeding into the crazy like mouth foaming like Nazi like stereotype that they have, where it's like, what is your ideology? I hate Jews. Okay, and what is your worldview? I'm a Nazi. Can you explain Nazism? It's when you hate Jews. Okay, it's like that like it's like that kind of stuff. Like what Thomas was kind of getting at, I guess in layman's terms, would be like with our like our manifesto and the why activism pamphlet and stuff. It's like rather than focus like, because if you need like propaganda, like we don't even need propaganda on like as far as like ourselves and why we dislike our enemies. It's like you just have to look at the world around you and drink story time and all that. It's like, but like, and so it's like we don't need to constantly remind ourselves and stuff in the outlet like. But for the org itself, it's like a mantra of self, like, exemplification, I guess. You know, it's like that, like take for instance, like the propaganda of America in World War II, where it was like we are this big, strong thing, and we can do this. You know, it's like that lifted people up rather than like if you can build people up through like to be strong through a message like that. I guess I'm paraphrasing like really hard. Sorry, Lawrence.
Oh, hey, yeah, just to sum up, what I think he's trying to get at is we gotta look beyond Jews. That's what sums it up the most. Like, yeah, you can. Everyone here knows that it's the Jewish question is true, but even if Jews were like more or less be gone tomorrow, okay, you know, the treatment that they've done to this country still be bad, whether Jews did it or not. You could have total, Americans, blooded Americans treating America the way Jews have treated it, and we'd still be opposed to it. But we gotta look beyond Jews, because it isn't just Jews that are doing these things. There's plenty of Shabbos goys, and there's gonna be plenty of Shabbos goys, even in the ethno state, that are gonna use and abuse, their countrymen. I think that's how you could phrase it to understand it better as to why we don't.
That's actually that's an aspect of it that I didn't consider too. Is like America has been so incredibly demoralized that seriously people would believe unironically that white people, let alone American white people, have no culture, and like that they have no like history. And it's like, even if all Jews like disappeared in a blink of an eye tomorrow, you would still have a bunch of white people all over the country that don't understand their American roots or like what.
It's not even the Jewish question, realistically. It's
what
the
the race
white
is
question.
capable of, etc.
What was it, Brian?
Oh, I was saying it's not even the Jewish question, because like the biggest thing that, as a whole, of like fascists or Natsucks, however you want to describe yourself, is that like we get so wrapped up like having like Nogs and Jews live rent free in your head for like 24/7, 365, and as a whole, we don't even focus on ourselves, because exactly what you're saying is like we need like kind of like, you know how you thought patrol, you need a fucking white patrol, like you need to fucking bully people and like stand up for your culture and like do it, because like in all honesty, I really don't care about Jews or Nogs. Like, I rather just focus on myself and my own people, because at the end of the day, we're the only ones going to make the change for our people and people in our community. So it's like, because no one else is going to do for us. Like, oh wow, like let's just deport all the Nogs and the Jews. Like, that's not going to resolve the problems. The problems are like internal. So you need to fix that as well. And like, not you, but, you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
I know what you're trying to say. I just fundamentally disagree, because we need to deal with our enemies, the ones who have inflicted this injury upon us and are continuing to do so. Sure, all our problems would disappear tomorrow if all of them disappeared, but it would be a very good flipping start.
Sure, but consider the following.
I totally hear you, but here's the thing, is like, I'm not discounting anybody's work at all whatsoever. But the thing is there's only so many like silver-tongued orators that you can list on a daily basis at most of the time. And so what I'm getting at is that like if someone's struggling, like your neighbor who's white and they don't have a job, are we just gonna like watch speeches on Telegram and like read about the Jews and the Nogs and say, hurrah, let's get rid of them? Or no, are you gonna help a buddy out? Are you gonna help put food on his table? Are you gonna help him get a job or like help him get a skill?
Those aren't mutually exclusive. We can help our buddy and also oppose the people who did that to him.
Well, here,
That's true.
to address your question a little more directly, Sean, I think a good way to put it is like consider what all the if you ask any Roman, a significant Roman author of the past, what was the decline of Rome or what caused the decline of Rome? More often than not, they're going to say it was moral decline is what started it all. Yes, obviously we do have enemies and there are barbarians within the gates, but had we not have declined morally and spiritually first, they would have never been allowed to get inside to begin with. Enemies are merely a symptom of the problem. And it's not to say that, they are not, or that we can ignore that and then we're do tons of total, self-improvement and they'll just go away. However, doing the self-improvement and the things and those sorts of things will give us the opportunities to then remove the rest of the parasites after, we've made ourselves strong in spirit, ironically enough. But, it doesn't seem like it connects, but it does. Does that answer a little bit more directly?
It expounds your viewpoint very correctly, but it's still wrong. You need to cure the disease, not the symptoms.
Sean, why did you join?
Well, no, we should put like swastikas on our pro-mat.
Hang on, Sean, why did you join Patriot Front?
To help America, obviously, and to build brotherhood with my fellow Americans.
Did you believe in the message? Do you believe in the message?
Yes, I believe in the message. I just believe the message should be expounded better. Is the best way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean, have you been? I don't think you have. Have you been on a march like I-Days march yet, like Philly?
No, I was at Charlottesville, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. I would highly recommend waiting until you're on one of those before expounding this opinion further.
Well, I don't think it's not a bad criticism. I mean, it's okay to have these, to have these discussions.
It's valid. Even I fought that at one point, but
me too.
It's like I totally get it. I fought the same thing. It's like why not just attack it directly? It's because it's like everyone knows I don't know.
It's the same thing as introducing, your family member or your close friend to the JQ. I mean, are you going to throw them in the deep end or just give them a trail of breadcrumbs?
It's not even that. It's like, consider the following. Why would I go down a big list of, it's the Jews, it's the blacks, it's the trannies, it's the cops, it's the fags, I could just say, it's the system. Because all these things, when I use the word, it's the system, it's an all-encompassing term. And sure, maybe not everyone's going to immediately get that, right? But at the same time, it's far simpler. It gets the same message across, and it's still consistent with beliefs. I think that's the best way I can sum up this idea.
Sometimes it's just a little nudge in the right direction. People will find out on their own.
Yeah, and it's like we can harp on about just the blacks or just the Jews or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's all those things. Because having one.
Right. I mean, if we just went Jew, everyone's walls would go up and then we'd fizzle out in a year.
It wouldn't even be that. We're not appealing to normies. We're appealing to our own guys. I think within the movement, like when Thomas was talking about how we have our own revolutionary, vocabulary and way of thinking and talking, I think that's why it could be a little confusing. That's why it's new, because what we are presenting is new. It's universal. It's not the old guard way of it's the Jews, it's the blacks, it's the trannies, it's the blah, 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 blah. 50 million things, 50 million complaints, because we can quickly sum it up as it's a system and then redirect the focus back on let's make this about us and the positive things about what America is and define American.
One common misconception about the organization that a lot of people have as well is that our goal is to try and appeal to normies. And Thomas is very explicit in the fact that our goal is to turn nationalists into activists. Like, how many people do we have with our viewpoints that shitpost on Telegram all day and can't be bothered to put up a fucking stick? How many?
Too many.
So, something else too that I was struggling to find the words to phrase that was like it's like the biggest part of this, like what was being said about like the true like white question beyond the Jewish question was like we have to rekindle the American spirit because it's been like lost to time with all the demoralization and brainwashing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our image is successful for a reason. The direct approach has not worked for a reason. Thomas understands this.
Well, it's because people generally don't like negativity, and the way most people attack things is in a very negative rather than constructive fashion.
That too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the world's already a negative place. Okay, like I'll be completely honest. The white nationalist community, I've met some of the worst people in my entire life in this community. I exclude Patriot from this, but the Telegram, the 4chan, if that was all there was, I would not want to be part of that community. That's why I don't interact with any channels. I don't interact with any white nationalists outside of this, because I believe that what I do is work, and I'm serious about my convictions and my goals. And so anything other than work and anything other than, making the dream happen isn't my interest. And it's especially not something that I would want to do as an angry grudge. And if I was interacting solely with those groups in a non-work capacity, like on Telegram and whatnot, it wouldn't be enjoyable. It wouldn't be preferable. It wouldn't be a community I would be a part of. Because everything we do here, the reason why what we do is preferable, because it is positive, it is good, it is professional, it's serious. So I think that's also an important thing to take in consideration too, and why it's important that we always positive with our messaging. Even like when Antifa, for example, you'll see them put up those like "Fuck Patriot Front" stickers, or even calling themselves anti-fascists. All you gotta do is cover up one word, and it's and it supports us. When you are against something, it's not anywhere near as powerful as being supporting of something. Like the world already understands what quote unquote Nazis dislike. They don't understand what we do like. They don't understand who and what we are. And that's why we need to redefine it and show the positive things.
Yeah.
And be positive, uplifting good people on top of that. Because that in turn will make the world a more positive, uplifting place.
That was pretty good.
Very well said.
Yeah. Write that shit down, Lawrence. That was good.
Well,
Lauren's going to be giving some Hitler-level speeches in a few years, guaranteed. But then again, Thomas has been getting pretty spicy with his speeches lately. I really like it.
I very much enjoy. I just want to add a couple things to this real quick, and then I'm going to bail. But basically, just to kind of go off of what Lawrence said, I know I'm not on here very much, so I've never talked to any of you guys, but I've been around here long enough. The same thing I find with the people that want us to put swastikas or something like that on our ProMat. They're the same fucking losers that are on Telegram and 4chan. Talk. When you look at their life, they're failures in just about every area of their life. So they're not going to do anything for their ideas are just not going to work. They're not going to do anything for us. Not going to be a good contributor typically. The fact of the matter is that the problem we're facing is actually worse than it's the Jews or the blacks or anything. It's even worse. So I would recommend that they step back and even look at it from a higher level. It's worse than the JQ. So take the next level red pill.
Well, yeah, I think the decay of our own people is the first and foremost issue that needs to be addressed. You can point fingers at the Jews all day, but at the same time, there is a group of people that let it happen, and that's us.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this has been going on for thousands of years. This is not just an America situation. This is many thousands of years. So
our culture has been subverted in favor of consumerism and self prioritization Like we need like something higher to strive for. Like you can't just consume Marvel product, play video games, and mash it all day. Like you got to have like a country and a worldview to believe in. That's like the even like a lot of people on poll don't really get this. It's like, yes, you can hate Jews and stuff, but like then you can also, like, most people in there are still very consumerist and stuff. Like a lot of people were like, oh wow, these are the new racist sunglasses that Nick Fuentes wears. I'm gonna buy this. It's I don't know.
Oh yeah, just saying, guys, don't buy Vipers for the meme, because if they find out racist, like any instance of a racist using their products, they donate the cost of the sunglasses to the SPLC.
But
So-
yeah, you get what I mean?
Not even for the meme. Not even for the meme.
Yeah.
Don't do it, guys. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Sean, do you want to talk about anything else? I mean, I hope like that kind of clarify. You don't even necessarily have to like agree. You can still, just because the whole room said that they think way doesn't mean you have to. But does that kind of clarify like what we kind of meant?
And we don't mean to argue with you. We're on your side. We like a lot of us like have thought like the same thing, but like myself included. Well, you know what I mean, Lawrence. But we're just explaining like the idea, I guess.
Yeah, and it is kind of hard to understand getting at, especially when it's new. Like
It's a little counterintuitive in some regards.
You can handle it.
I remember.
yeah,
actually funny enough.
everyone gets it eventually, for the most part. I mean,
It was funny. My ex was like way ahead of her time in times of like in regards to like our messaging and whatnot. I remember back in the day when we still had the support them all slogan, and she's like, "Oh, I don't like that one." I was like, "Well, why not?" And she's like, "Well, it's so negative. It seems bad." I'm like, "Well, who cares? Like, we don't want Mexicans here." She's like, "Well, yeah, but like, why don't you say something more positive, like send them home?" And I was like, the goal is to like recruit guys who are angry. Like, why wouldn't we say it that way? And she's like, "Oh, okay, well, if you say so, I still don't like it." And at the time, I didn't get it, but she was right, actually. And that's why we retired that slogan. I mean, there's a variety of reasons. First of all, it being negative, but secondly, the idea of have federal government do something when we were opposed to federal government, that doesn't really make sense. But either way.
oh, is that the old one
I
that
still like the
encouraged
slogan.
people to call ICE?
Yeah, the old Iceman. They were funny. They got a lot of butt hurt, from people. But once again, I think it is more important that we show the world what we support and what we are for rather than what we are against, because everyone knows what we're against, But
That's a
where
very
the
good
good guys,
point.
and that's another thing.
Well,
I think
yeah,
people
it's like
forget
the
that we are the good
GDL
guys.
versus Patriot Front. Like, who's getting somewhere at the end of the day?
Yeah.
I can Lawrence and I can attest to that with like experience, because we know a guy who left Patriot Front for the GDL, and it just wasn't a positive thing for him. It was a really bad influence, and they got into a lot of trouble and stuff, and it was just very trashy.
Speaking of which, Logan moved to Tampa. I'm trying to
He did?
get more. Yeah, recently. Well, we can talk about that later.
Well,
I'm hoping.
I did hear some unfortunate news about him.
I know what you're talking about.
Is he still doing that Vanguard 18 thing?
No, he's not doing that. That was stupid. I mean, like,
Okay.
I had just gotten him, like, kicked him out the butt enough to get him enrolled back into school again, and then he moves across the state. I'm like, God, are you serious? Anyway, at the very least, he's out of a job, which means he has more time to invest into going back to school, as he needs to do that. Hopefully, he can get another job again, though, but yeah, at least that gas station job isn't, taking up all his time, and it's like totally like, interfering with his ability to do other stuff. And it's like, dude, do you really want to work at this gas station forever, or do you want to like go somewhere in life?
I really miss him. I want him to come back. He just needs to I guess just improve. He's a good kid.
Okay, if he get himself enrolled in a high school or whatever type of thing, I'll say he can come back. But he just needs to be enrolled. He needs to show me. He needs to prove that he's doing his work. And if he needs help, he needs to ask for it, because
he just needs to show a little ambition.
Yeah, like everyone here is more than capable of helping him with like his homework or whatever he needs in terms of schooling. Like, I've been writing essays my entire life. Like, if he needs help with a history paper or an essay or how to do a citation, okay, like, he's got no excuse. I've got a bachelor's degree. Like, that's literally, I went to school 4 years to like get good at writing these papers, basically. Like, just ask for help if you need it, please. I'll give it away for free. I'm more than happy to help him and anyone in this room, actually, if you are doing school still.
Unrelated, I really wish Floyd stuck around because I was hoping to talk about weekend activism. Although I don't know if he'd be up for that.
Yeah.
I know Jack can't do it. Other than like
Let's
maybe
hop in
like a
meeting
brief
room, let
window of
everyone
time.
else.
Yeah.
Let's let everyone else talk in here. Let's go down to meeting room 3.
I mean, I will just say, like, anybody enrolled in like a CS program too, I'll be more than willing to help people with whatever. I'm not the best with the math end of it, but I do okay with most of the other stuff.
Likewise.
Oh, base, we got another tech bro in here.
That's right, another code monkey.
Base, right. So, yeah, definitely a very lucrative career opportunity if anybody is looking to get involved with something. One of many lucrative paths.